What is up, fight fans? I am back. My first live stream in like 4 weeks. Remember the last one? I was like pouting on my live stream because Alexa Grasso had won. I said I'm gonna quit the sport, but I really lied. I was just being dramatic. I was never really truly done. I've said that many times before. I've just never came forward and said it on live. But Juliana Pena is the bantamweight champion of the world, and it feels good. Feels good to be living in this reality where Pena is the champion. Her haters are mad. Everyone's bitching and moaning, crying robbery. People don't want her as champ again, and she's the champion again, and I am happy. This is exactly what I wanted for Juliana Pena to wear that belt once again after she lost her first defense 2 years ago and she was deemed the shitty one-hit wonder. Now here she is. Now you might as well call her a two-hit wonder. Amanda looking fine and coming for Pena. Maybe. And I'm going to talk about that in this live, but I'm basking in the glory right now of Pena's victory. I'm basking in that glory. And I know y'all are mad. A lot of y'all haters are mad. I mean, it's funny how everyone acts like this fight was a clear, concrete robbery. Like, there's no way Juliana could have won this fight at all. Like, I could understand scoring the fight for Raquel Pennington. It's not unreasonable to say, I thought Raquel could have edged it. But people act like it was just a night and day robbery. I've seen way worse robberies in MMA. This was not one of them. This was not one of the worst robberies we've ever seen, okay? It was a very close fight. It was a very close fight. And it came down to the first round. And in my opinion, I thought Juliana Pena edged round one. I really do. Like, yeah, they were striking, and that's where Raquel, has the advantage. But like, that's where Raquel has the advantage is the striking. But even on the feet in the first round, Juliana Pena was holding her own, literally. Juliana Pena had more on the striking numbers in round one. And Juliana was also landing good shots as well, good significant strikes. She was touching Raquel with that jab, tagging her coming in with that left hook. Every time Raquel would engage, Pena was countering her. So I thought Juliana ever so slightly edged round one. Now, there was that big right hand that Raquel, I think, landed early, which did kind of scare me. And then she did land that uppercut as well, which also scared me. Like, she tagged her a good couple times in that first round. But ultimately, I thought Pena had the edge on the feet in round one, and that's why she won the fight, you know? I don't think Raquel clearly won the first round at all. I thought Pena did enough to win the first round against Raquel Pennington. And then the second round and third round, we know Juliana dominated those rounds with the wrestling, the takedowns. Where it got dicey was like the championship rounds where Juliana started to kind of fade because of the altitude and started coasting, and Raquel started coming on strong and dropped her. But that's really all Raquel did throughout the fight. That's the best success she ever had, was in the fourth and fifth round. And round one, if round one went the way round five did, I'd be like, yeah, that was a clear first round for Raquel. But round one didn't do any damage, hardly touched Juliana, and was kind of getting pieced up in that first round. Even the fifth round, if Pena wasn't getting wobbled and hurt in the fifth, I think Pena wins the fifth round as well, because Juliana Pena was actually landing a lot. She was tagging Raquel with a lot of good shots in that fifth round and drawing out a lot of misses from Raquel Pennington in that fifth round. It's just that whenever Raquel would touch Juliana, Juliana would have a big reaction. So because of that, I cannot give the fifth round to um I can't give the fifth round to Juliana. And I'm gonna have to rewatch the fight again when I can. And I think mainly I'm going to watch the first round. I'm going to watch the whole fight, of course, but I'm going to watch round one again so I can have a clear analysis as to who won that fight unbiasedly. But I think it's Juliana Pena. And anyone who says that it was a robbery and there's no way Juliana won are just Juliana Pena haters who are biased against her and they do not think objectively. These are people who do not like her, did not want her to become champion, and were preying on her downfall. So when they see her come back and win and have any kind of adversity, they need something to crap on Pena for, and they cannot accept that she's the champion again. So of course they're going to pretend that this is just a robbery and that there's just no way she could have won this fight. And I think I think people are also kind of blinded by the biased commentary of Joe Rogan, DC, and Anik. They were missing by a mile in this fight. Like they were acting like Raquel could have even won the second round, which was garbage. There's no way Pennington won round 2 against Juliana Pena. You could maybe argue the first round, but it wasn't even that decisive. And you know what this fight reminds me of? And this just proves that MMA fans are hypocrites. Okay? This just proves that MMA fans are hypocrites because remember Aljamain Sterling versus Peter Yan part 2 when round 1 was very close, but that was the deciding round. And Aljamain Sterling landed more strikes, significant and total, in round 1 against Peter Yan. The most Peter Yan did was pressure and stalk down. Aljo landed a few occasional body kicks, a few glancing punches, nothing damaging. Sterling was drawing out a lot of misses. Remember that? And it came down to that round, and because Aljo was a little more active, he won that round. And then rounds 2 and 3, he dominated on the ground. And though rounds 2 and 3 were deciding rounds for Aljo that won him the fight against Peter Yan. And on 2 cards, he won the first round. And then Peter Yan came back and won the 4th and 5th, just like Raquel came back and won the 4th and 5th, right? But what's funny is, and Aljo has a lot of haters, just like Pena, but I think he's more respected as a fighter and probably less hated, honestly. But no one calls Yan Aljo 2 a robbery. A lot of people, some people say they thought that Peter could have won, but they acknowledged that, you know what, this was probably the right decision. And Yan could have done more in the first round. But then when it's Juliana Pena against Raquel in the exact same type of fight, it was a robbery, and there's no way she won the fight. It's crazy. It's crazy. Where did you find the video of Amanda dancing? I remember when Amanda was going to fight Cyborg, she had a dance video like that. It was on Instagram. It was in her story. It was in her story. All judges scored 2-5 the same. Rounds 2 and 3 Pena, 4 and 5 Pennington. Yep. And Mike Bell, he did me a favor and he made up for the mistake he did against Grasso because he costed Grasso her title reign by giving Val the 4th round and then giving Grasso a 10-8, leading to a draw, leading to her losing the belt in the trilogy. So Mike Bell had to come through for your boy and give Juliana the 1st round as Saul D'Amato. So thank you, Saul. Thank you, Mike Bell, for doing the right thing and making the right call. I mean, how can you guys call this a robbery? Juliana Pena literally doubled her on total strikes. Okay, 2 takedowns. Both are even on like 92 or on significant strikes. Let me see if UFC.com like has the let me see if UFC.com like has the control time. I don't think it does. Okay, never mind. But I'm pretty sure Juliana had more control time as well. Control time and more total strikes. And Raquel was not far ahead in terms of significant strikes. Juliana Pena had more distant strikes even. Okay, and then Raquel had maybe a bit more like clinch strikes. Let me just keep looking. Okay, these are the stats throughout the rounds. So Juliana Pena, round 1, she landed 25% of her strikes out of 42 attempts. Raquel landed 17 out of 28. So you look at that and tell me, was that a clear round 1 win for Raquel Pennington? Was she just straight up convincingly piecing up Pena on the feet in that round? Or was Juliana landing that lead check hook when Raquel would engage, and was she landing more of her attempted strikes? Answer that. Comment in this live and tell me, how Raquel Pennington clearly won the first. Tell me how that was a robbery. Tell me how there's no case for Julianna winning round 1 against Raquel. That's just ridiculous. And then like round 2, again, Julianna Pena landed more. 6 out of 40 attempts, Raquel 4 out of 19, and then the takedown, and then controlled her on the ground. Round 3, Julianna Pena, 16%. I think, well, now, okay, I'm getting lost here because now it's showing distance strikes, but yeah, Julianna Pena lands more in the 3rd round and then gets a takedown and controls her and had a submission attempt, which was almost in. Like, she almost got a face crank rear naked choke, but, fortunately didn't end up working out that way. And then, okay, again, the 4th and 5th, better rounds for Raquel because she rocked Julianna with the head kick and then she dropped her with the overhand right, which scared the living daylights out of me. And then the 5th round, that was Raquel's round. I'll give it to her. Okay, 4 and 5 are Raquel's round. Honestly, you guys gotta blame Raquel Pennington for not having enough urgency in the 4th and 5th round. Because when she hurt Pena, she could have been more aggressive. She could have put her foot on the gas more than she did in that 5th round. And even in the 1st round, she could have probably used more leg kicks. The commentators were saying she needed more leg kicks. If she threw more leg kicks in round 1 and didn't just rely on her boxing, mixed in her kicks sooner, she maybe could have won the 1st round. But she tried to go punch for punch with Julianna. Julianna came prepared with ever so slightly improved hands, like I predicted, by the way, and was able to hold her own on the feet and win on the feet in that round. So it's not a robbery. Not all close fights are robberies. And you know what? If the decision had gone the other way, I might have still thought deep down maybe Pena could have won, but I wouldn't be sitting here saying it was a robbery. Because even after the fight, I posted on the community tab saying, like, I don't know if Julianna did enough. Unfortunately, she may have not done enough, but I'm proud of her. I'm proud of her efforts. She didn't get finished. She put up a hard fight. But then when I heard Ann New, I'm like, you know what? Thinking back to round 1, she actually did win the 1st round. Like, I stopped and thought to myself after Julianna was announced the winner, I'm like, you know what? Round 1 actually was hers. I really do think so. But it's just crazy how mad people are about this fight. And whenever I argue with people about who won this fight, you know what people's argument is? Their argument point for why Julianna lost? Because every MMA media member scored the fight for every MMA media member scored it for Raquel. So every judge who wasn't judging this fight favored Raquel to win the fight. That's crazy. So because every media member said that, oh, Raquel won, that means that she won the fight. Like, you can't just analyze it yourself, watch for yourself to get a good understanding. Like, you can't think for yourself. It's kind of pathetic, if you ask me. But whatever, at the end of the day, as long as Julianna has the belt, that's all that matters. Raquel is the champion, no more. And what was best for the division is what happened. So you guys should be grateful. You shouldn't be complaining because you got Pena, who's going to carry this division. She's going to market herself. She's going to promote herself. You guys may find her annoying, but you respond to everything she says. She baits all the haters so easily. Y'all be tuning into her interviews, and you're going to be tuning into her every fight, either because you love her and you want her to win, or you hate her and you just really want her to lose. And Harrison Pena was always the bigger fight. It was always the more interesting fight. Nobody really cares about Raquel being champion. And it's funny how you guys try to act like you genuinely feel sorry for Raquel and like you genuinely care about Raquel You don't. Nobody truly cares about Pennington. Nobody's truly sad for Pennington. They're just pissed that Juliana Pena is back on top. That's really all there is to it. But, oh, what's up, Toron Brown? How did you score the co-main event, buddy? Because a lot of people seem to think it was just like a night and day robbery. And earlier in this live, I don't know if you were here, I broke down why Juliana Pena won this fight. And I'm telling y'all, anyone watching this live, they need to go back and rewatch the first round and look at the stats. Look at the stats, rewatch the first round. And it's funny, stats only matter depending on which fighter it is. If it's a fighter that fans get behind and they land more in a round, then fans will be like, yeah, they won that fight because I wanted them to win. But if they hate that fighter who landed more, it just doesn't matter. Now, I understand landing more doesn't always matter. Like, it all comes down to landing the bigger, better, more damaging shots, right? But Raquel did no damage in that first round. She didn't hurt Juliana in that first round. She landed one good uppercut, one straight cross, I believe it was, that tagged Juliana. But out of those two shots, Juliana landed more impactful check hooks, meaningful jabs, meaningful overhand rights. I felt she landed the more effective boxing combinations in that first round. And people want to act like I'm just biased and I'm only saying this because I like Pena. I literally did a video saying I thought Valentina Shevchenko won the second fight with Alexa Grasso because of the fourth round. And it took me a year to admit that. But come on, man. Like, I'm not that biased when it comes to judging and scoring fights. I can be objective. I can think objectively and unbiasedly. Like, if Juliana Pena really lost this fight, then I would say so. And what's funny is, yeah, there's a lot of people who thought Grasso lost the second fight, and most people thought Val should have won fight 2, but there's so many people defending Alexa and saying that she won the second fight. And I guarantee you, if Grasso was the heel like Juliana and was as hated as Juliana Pena and she wasn't a fan favorite, everyone would be saying it was a clear win for Val. There would be a bigger majority of people out there saying, yeah, Grasso just didn't win at all. It was a clear robbery. But because it's Pena, yeah, she totally lost. And it's frustrating. Like, I had like a debate with people earlier today, like online, and it's just, I mean, I was toying with these Pena haters. It was too easy. But at the end of the day, we were just talking in circles. I was talking to a brick wall. And there was just really no point in going back and forth with them. So I kind of gave up and tapped out. But I defended my case for Juliana Pena winning. And it was clear that these people who I debated with, it's clear that their reasoning for saying it was a robbery is because they just do not like Juliana Pena. It's because they do not like her. Rose Namajunas arguably robbed Zhang Weili, but she didn't even get that much scrutiny or hatred or slack for winning a close fight with Weili as Juliana Pena did. Grasso and Rose got it way easier winning close fights that many people thought they lost in Juliana Pena. Like, the amount of hate Juliana gets for this fight, it's crazy. It's crazy. And if you're gonna judge this fight, don't go based off of what the stupid ass media members think. Their opinion doesn't fucking matter. Watch for yourself. Think for yourself. Do your own analysis. Don't depend on these goddamn stupid media members. They're not God. They don't decide what is the concrete answer. And I'm surprised the Weasel hasn't made a video on this fight yet. I'm genuinely surprised. I thought by now we'd see him talk about this, but I mean, there were like a lot of bad decisions at UFC 307, like a lot of frustrating decisions because there was a lot of picks I got wrong were because they were split decisions that went the other way, like Carla Esparza, Tisha Torres, and then even Austin Hubbard, Alexander Hernandez, Yasmin Lucindo, Marina Rodriguez. I thought Marina won that fight against Yasmin Lucindo because I thought she did more damage on the feet. She dropped Lucindo. Um, and didn't one judge give Lucindo like all 3 rounds, which is just weird. But again, I thought Marina did more on the feet, and I thought that Lucindo, when she took her down, hardly did anything with those takedowns. So it's kind of crazy to me how the judges in Utah, they favored control time over damage and significant strikes. Because that's not part of the scoring criteria, no? Isn't it effective striking, grappling, and damage? Like, let me know in the comments. I can look up the scoring criteria rules right now, but it seems like the judges just did not abide by the rules. But I tell you what, this may be a hot take, not really. Pena Pennington was not the worst decision on that card. Okay? The fight could have gone either way. It was not a clear win either way, but it wasn't a robbery either. So stop acting like it was a clear, concrete win for Raquel. Like, people act like Raquel dominated the entire fight, and then they just gave it to Juliana Pena. Like, they act like Raquel did to Pena what Amanda Nunes did to Pena in the second fight, and they just gave it to Pena. That's people's picture of this fight. It's insane. What's up, MMA Art? Based Alexander Volkanovski. He just made a fan out of me. I was never really a fan of Volk. I fuck with him now. But see, even Volkanovski gets it. Volkanovski's the GOAT. If you want someone to listen to Alexander Volkanovski, not some stupid MMA media members. Because Volkanovski is a fighter. He's been in the cage. He has experience. He's been in these close fights before. So if anyone's opinion matters, it's Volkanovski. And I know DC is a former fighter and he thinks Raquel won, but I don't really care what DC says. He's known for having terrible takes as a commentator, so screw him. I mean, I'm a fan of Cormier, but he's tripping with that one, saying, yeah, because you know what you're watching. When Joe said that he thought that Raquel won. I don't know if he actually said that, but I saw like a post of that on Instagram that could have been like a fake quote where maybe his words got misconstrued, but he said, I don't know why people are screaming robbery. Pena landed cleaner strikes in the first. She did. Like, people need to stop and watch that round. And I remember yesterday, I was like literally debating with someone about the fight and about round one. And then this guy brings up, oh, but Raquel dropped her and hurt her. And I'm like, I'm talking about round one, not the fourth round. And I know people are praying that Amanda Nunes comes back because I know people really, really want to see Julianna lose. So they're thinking either we're going to get to see Kayla get rid of her or Amanda come back and get rid of her. But we'll see. But like I said in that video I posted earlier, I would like for Nunes to hold out just a little bit longer. Don't fight Juliana right away because I want to see Juliana get a defense first. Doesn't matter who it is, whether it's against Dumont or Harrison, which would really establish her aura. But as a Pena fan and seeing as she just got her title back, let's not run that trilogy right this instant. I want to see Juliana prove herself that she can be a defending champion first. Because then I feel like going into a third fight with Amanda, it would add more excitement And I feel like Pena might be more respected going into that third fight. But the reason why in this title I have the question mark behind is the Nunes really coming back is because there's a lot of people doubting that she's actually coming back. Like some people really think Nunes is just teasing and that she's not fighting again. But I don't know. If Nunes is posting her story, dancing and tagging Dana White, it has to be for a reason. If she's reposting someone's post talking about matchmaking her with the winner of Harrison Pena, she is 1000% going to come back. Like, I knew she couldn't stay gone. And she said that she could not retire with Pena as the champ, that she could not leave her with the title. But now Julianna is the champ. Nunes is retired. So let's see if Nunes sticks to her word, if she's going to try to come back, and is she going to try to take it from her again, or is she going to stay retired? I mean, personally, like as a Pena fan, like look, I said in that video earlier, I don't want to see it because I feel like Pena would lose a third fight with Nunes. That's why I don't want it to happen. Like she got dominated so badly last time they fought, and I know there's a chance that Nunes could come back washed, and it might give Pena a better chance, but I've tried to rely on and depend on goats like Val and Nunes coming back washed in their rematches, and it just doesn't happen. Like I've said that, oh, Grasso and Pena are going to come back better, and they're going to find a way to win again. It just doesn't happen, okay? Grasso couldn't do it again. Pena couldn't do it again, and she got beaten so decisively everywhere. So unless Nunes comes back and just isn't the same, I don't see how Julianna wins. I feel like her winning that fight was like a one-time thing because she had the element of surprise. Amanda Nunes underestimated her, was recovering from COVID and whatnot. But when she was able to reset, take more time off, nurse her injuries, and actually properly prepare for Pena the second time around and actually slow things down and properly adjust and lock in, we saw what happened when they reran that. Amanda Nunes came back and completely dominated. And even if Nunes is going to be coming back from a long layoff, I don't think that means she's going to be washed. Like I'm expecting the best Nunes to show up if they fight again. Like I can't doubt Amanda Nunes. I just can't. If George St. Pierre and John Jones can come back from their layoffs and win, why can't Amanda Nunes? Like she strikes me as that type of fighter. I don't see her having like a Henry Cejudo flopped comeback. I think her comeback has more potential to be John Jones like because that's the level of greatness she's on. And I've always said that if this third fight happens, I do think that Amanda Nunes will finish the job this time. She just has way too much firepower. And every time they fight, Julianna Pena takes a ridiculous amount of damage against the Lioness. And I think this third time around, I don't think she can endure that level of punishment against Amanda Nunes, like in that second fight, like in that first fight. And if Raquel is knocking you on your ass, pillow-fisted Raquel, who hasn't had a knockout since 2012, has never scored a knockdown in the UFC. The Holly Holm knockdown was a slip. Holly wasn't hurt. Could you imagine if someone like Nunes is hitting you clean? I don't think her chin's going to hold up the same way as it did in the first two fights. It didn't really hold up that well in the second fight. She just recovered really well, and Nunes just kind of let her back up. But in this fight, I think Nunes, if she drops Pena, she's really going to go for it. I don't think Pena's going to be able to recover and get back in the fight. Now, what I think may happen in a trilogy, I could see Pena having a lot of success on the feet. Like, she will be prepared for the southpaw stance. I do think she will hit Nunes a lot. I think she will do some damage. She'll swell up her eye again, give Nunes some bruising. She might make it relatively competitive on the feet. She might be a little more patient and not blitz. But I don't know. I just feel like at some point, when they start to open up and they get in a slugfest, I think that's when Nunes is going to finish her. When Pena really starts to commit and she tries to make something happen, I think Nunes is going to connect one of those big shots on Pena's dome, and I think Pena's going to fall, and I don't think she's going to recover. I could see this fight being similar to Yuri Prohaska versus Alex Pereira 1 and 2, where the tough, aggressive fighter gets punished for overly committing against a powerful counter striker with good leg kicks, and Nunes has some nasty calf kicks. Not like Pereira's, but again, her kicks are still dangerous. But speaking of Alex Pereira, I did not make a video about Poatan's fight with Khalil Roundtree, but damn, we have to address this. Alex Poatan Pereira is truly him. Okay, he is truly a special fighter, and that fight with Roundtree was absolutely insane. Like, dude, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time in that fight. And Poatan was in trouble. I mean, he was losing the first 2 rounds, but like a champion, Poatan was able to adapt, break Roundtree down with his calf kicks, with his body shots, and with him having an altitude advantage, he had more energy for the late rounds, whereas Khalil didn't. And also, the way Khalil fights, it does take a lot of energy. Like all that footwork and bouncing around and blitzing, that can tire you out. So Poatan just played the patient game, kind of let Khalil wear himself out. And once he got tired, he went for the kill and absolutely slaughtered Khalil against the cage, which I felt kind of sad because I partially wanted Khalil to win. Nothing against Poatan. I just want to see an underdog get a win. That would have been crazy and thrilling. But you know, Pereira winning is better for the division because now, if Ankh beats Rakic, we get the fight we've always wanted, which is Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev. And if Roundtree had won, we would not have gotten that fight. So, part of me is grateful. And also, I'm glad Pereira won in the sense that he ended my title fight prediction loss streak. Because it took me 3 months to get a correct title fight prediction again, okay? Because the last title fight I got right before Poatan was Tom Aspinall. Yes, I count interim. But I picked Leon to beat Bilal. I was wrong. And then what else? I picked Adesanya to beat Duplessis. I picked with a bit of logic, but also kind of picked with my heart. I should have picked Dricus to win, and I was wrong. And then I picked Grasso to beat Valentina because I believed that she had her number, and that as the younger fighter, she could come back more improved and actually get the dub and make it convincing this time. Didn't happen. I had Merab winning, but then I changed my mind. I fell for the hype of Sean O'Malley and thought, oh, we can stuff this guy's takedowns and create space and knock him out, but didn't happen. So I ended up going 7-7 on title fights in 2024 after UFC 306. And then I went 7-8 when I picked Raquel and Julianna won. But Pereira winning now, I'm 8-8. So I guess we're gonna have to find out. Or I guess we're gonna see how much better I do going forward for the rest of the year because we have like a few more title fights. We got Holloway Topuria, which I still don't have a concrete pick yet. Jones Miocic, I got John Jones, and then who knows what title fight's gonna happen in December. But if I'm correct about Holloway Topuria and John Jones, then I'll probably go 10-8 on title fights, which is not what I wanted. I would have liked to have had like 12 plus correct title fights and only very few wrong, but Sometimes these fights are just difficult to predict, man. Like at first, these fights were easy to call. Well, actually, no. The first three title fights of the year were hard to predict. Like Strickland Duplessis was difficult to predict. So was Myra Silva versus Raquel Pennington. And then also Volkanovski Topuria. I wasn't too sure who was going to win that fight. I wasn't overly confident on a prediction. All three of those fights, I rolled the dice. I took a guess, and I guessed wrong. But then O'Malley Vera, that was an easy fight to call. Pereira Hill, I thought Jamal had a chance, but I just couldn't bet against Poatan. So it felt like in hindsight that was a pretty obvious pick. Pantoja Urseg, obvious pick. Um, and then Islam Dustin, obvious pick. Poatan Yuri, obvious pick. Aspinall, Blades, obvious pick. But then I guess where it wasn't so obvious was Leon Bilal. In hindsight, Dricus Izzy, and then UFC 306, those fights, again, hard to predict. I did talk about Nunes. Did you leave my live stream part way? Because I did mention, I did talk about the possibility of her returning. And I talked about how a lot of people are saying that she actually isn't coming back and that she's just teasing. But I want to give my review on UFC 307. Overall, stinky card. A lot of robberies except the co-main event, so you can shut the fuck up. And then I had a lot of wrong predictions, and the main card was pretty boring. And like the fight that truly saved the card was the main event, Pereira versus Khalil Roundtree. And of course the co-main event because Julianna won, and I was super happy about that. Those are the only two fights on the card that like I truly enjoyed. Aldo was a complete disappointment. Like, oh my gosh, man. I was worried about this, honestly. Having him fight at altitude every time he fights in Salt Lake City, Utah, he underperforms. This was Marab all over again. They gave Jose Aldo a grappler who is just gonna look to cage hug him. And literally that's all he did. And Aldo, late into his career, is so washed to the point that even though his takedown defense is good, he makes no effort to break the clinch and just allows you to hold him against the cage and knee him in the thighs. This happened when he fought Volk. This happened when he fought Marab. He just stays against the cage, has no urgency, and it makes me so mad. Aldo loses the first round because he gets outlanded, held against the cage. And then the second round, Aldo started coming on strong and tagging Bautista. And then out of nowhere, Aldo just starts giving up and backing up and allowing Martinez to walk him into the cage, which was so annoying. So annoying. Like, why did he stop pressuring? And then round three, honestly, I thought Bautista won the fight, and it wasn't a robbery. But I do wish they gave it to Aldo because he's a legend. He would have deserved it more. It was better for the division if Aldo could have won. Because if he would have won, this would have opened up so many big opportunities for the former champ, Jose Aldo. He could have got a higher ranked opponent that could have got him back into title contention because that's his goal. And I said, this is a pointless and risky matchup because he has everything to lose, nothing to gain. And Aldo lost everything. He lost this fight and he lost potential future opportunities. But maybe on a positive note, now this could leave room for the Dominic Cruz fight. Hopefully, maybe early 2025. I don't know what Dominic Cruz is doing. I don't know why he hasn't fought at all in the last few years. But Aldo Cruz was always the fight. What is the UFC waiting for? Aldo's not retired at the moment. Cruz is not officially retired. Make that fight before it's too late. Loser goes home. And should Aldo win, then reward him. Give him the number 6 ranked guy. Give him a Song Yadong matchup. Give him Henry Cejudo. Maybe give him the winner of Figueiredo, Peter Yan, or the loser, or Corey Sandhagen, or whatever, you know? But, either way, maybe they should just award Jose Aldo because it was a stinky performance, but it was a split decision. Aldo's more of a fan favorite. Nobody cares about Mario Bautista. And I don't really think Mario Bautista is going to go any further beyond this win over Aldo. Like, he sucks. Mario Bautista's mid. Okay, he beat Aldo. I mean, I don't think Mario Bautista's going to go anywhere. I don't think he's going to, crack the top 5. Does he beat Rob Fonts? Probably not. Doesn't beat Song Yadong. Maybe he beats Marlon Vera because Marlon Vera lacks a sense of urgency and is too slow of a starter and waits too much. Cejudo probably beats him. Figgy smashes him. Corey suns him again. Peter Yan destroys him. Umar destroys him. O'Malley destroys him. Marab destroys him. Like, Mario Bautista's not going to last. He's going to be gone like a fly in the wind. Hold on a second. Being there live in the arena, everyone thought Aldo won the fight. I wish they gave it to him, man. I'm not opposed to an idea of Aldo winning, but I don't know if I can say he won that. Because in round 3, none of his shots really landed that cleanly, and he was getting held against the cage and outstruck. But he did win the second round, and Aldo did overall do more damage in the fight. Should Wonder Boy have retired after that KO loss? Yeah, I think so. I think he should retire. And it's sad, man, to see Wonder Boy go out like that. He's not the same guy. His chin isn't what it used to be, and his recovery is completely gone. Because, I mean, you look at Wonder Boy like 6 years ago when he fought Woodley, he's getting dropped, but he's getting back up. He's fighting his way back up. Darren Till drops him. He recovers. He gets back up. He's able to take other big shots on the chin without even going down. And I know Pettis knocked him out, but it was a fluke. It was a shot he didn't see coming. This fight, he just gets dropped or KO'd by a raw, overhand or no, left hook or right hook against the cage. I got to watch that again. That shot would not have finished a 34-year-old Wonderboy Thompson. Wonderboy would have definitely recovered in his prime. And that just shows Wonderboy is done. I mean, Wonderboy fought hard. I thought Wonderboy could have potentially been winning the fight until he wasn't. But yeah, I think Wonderboy should call it a career because Wonderboy Thompson is literally 1-4 in his last 5 fights. And his last 2, he got knocked out. He got finished in his last 2. Submitted and then got knocked out. So I don't really know where Wonderboy goes from here. Like, what else is Wonderboy going to do? He's never going to fight for the title in the welterweight division again. You can't give him any higher ranked opponents in the division because he's on a losing streak. I mean, he could fight down the rankings, but even then, there's so many bad matchups for him. Like, if they make Michael Morales versus Stephen Thompson, he loses that fight. If they give him Michael Page, I mean, that might be a better fight for Wonderboy. Maybe. I mean, that was always the fight that should have been next after Michael Page's UFC debut. It shouldn't have been Ian Gary. Wonderboy shouldn't have fought Buckley. It should have been Wonderboy Thompson and Michael Venom Page at UFC 304. But they both didn't want it because they're friends, and their excuse was, oh, our styles would be boring against each other, even though that's the most intriguing matchup you could make. Yeah, Page would actually be a bad matchup. I mean, he could rematch Luque and beat him again because Luque is washed. I think he'd beat Neil Magny and Kevin Holland again, but there's no point in making that rematch. So, yeah, I don't really know what's left for Wonder Boy. He's 41 years old, 1-4 in his last five, just got knocked out. And knockouts, they change older fighters. So I believe Wonder Boy in his next fight's going to be even more worse off than he's ever been. You know what? Actually, that's a good point. If Nick Diaz beats Vicente Luque, they can make Nick Diaz versus Wonder Boy. And that's actually a good fight for Wonder Boy because Nick Diaz is hella washed, more washed than Stephen Thompson. He's not going to shoot takedowns. All he has is boxing. Stephen Thompson has better footwork. He's faster. He's got the kicks. He could potentially just pick Nick Diaz apart to a decision if they fight. And that could actually be a good retirement fight for Wonder Boy. I totally agree. I did not think of that. We need Lazy Boy Rodriguez versus Manal Cop. Isn't that booked though? Um, we need Pereira versus Jones. We need Kong versus Kareen. Who is Oh, Kayla Nunes. Yes, that's a super fight. If Kayla Harrison doesn't need that much time off, like she said she needs to recover from the weight cut, and she beats Pena early next year, the fight to make is Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes because Kayla Harrison has a very dominant style. She's big. She's like the Brock Lesnar of the women's bantamweight division. And Kayla is someone who could truly challenge Amanda Nunes like no other has or could. I think the way you're going to beat Amanda is if you can outmatch her in strength and physicality. If you can be bigger and stronger and have a significant advantage in the grappling, your odds of beating Amanda Nunes skyrocket. Whereas if you're someone like Julianna, who's on the smaller, weaker side, who doesn't have the greatest takedown defense, then that's a better fight for Amanda Nunes. Like she can ragdoll someone like an Irene Aldana or a Juliana Pena or Jermaine Ranamy, or use her size to beat Val. But against Kayla, it's gonna be a different story. I don't think she's gonna out wrestle Harrison. I think Harrison's one of the very few women who can take her down. And if she takes Nunes down, I think she's keeping her down. And she could wear Nunes down round by round. Every time Nunes is forced to defend a takedown or gets taken down, has to fight her way back up, Nunes is going to decline round by round, get even worse, and the wrestling might come easier for Kayla, and she might get a finish in the late rounds or win a decision. But, there are paths to victory for Nunes to win. You can't count out Nunes. She's got that greatness factor, that experience. As a long reigning 2 division champion, she's got better striking than Kayla. She's got power. And Ketlin Vieira was able to challenge Kayla Harrison. Like I predicted, I did say I had a feeling that this was going to be a tough fight for for Kayla, because Vieira is strong, she's big, good takedown defense, and presents similar challenges that Larissa Pacheco did. And Nunes is a better version. She's a nastier version of Ketlin Vieira. She's faster, stronger, hits harder, better striker, higher fight IQ, better takedown defense. And I mean, if Vieira could do that kind of damage, imagine Amanda Nunes. But I do think Kayla's judo / wrestling and size and strength would be a problem for Amanda to deal with. But that's what makes it so interesting. But honestly, how much longer is Kayla Harrison's UFC career going to last? Because the way she's talking, she does not sound like someone who we're going to see around for like any more than a year, because she needs time off literally because the weight cuts are too hard. She literally said, I had this in my last video of her saying, yeah, I need time off because the cuts are too hard, and yeah, it's just hard on my body. I'm not a 135er. She does not sound like someone who can make championship weight. She's never made 135 pounds in her UFC career. She's never made the full limit. She's weighed like a pound over in both fights in the UFC. So if these cuts are that bad to where she needs breaks to recover, I don't think we're gonna see Kayla that much longer. Like she might go back to the PFL where she can weigh in at 155 pounds because wasn't she competing in the women's lightweight division or was it the featherweight division? I'm not sure. But she might retire or she might have to go back to the PFL or Dana is gonna have to bring back the women's featherweight division. Otherwise, I think Kayla's run in the UFC might be short-lived. So if Kayla does beat Pena, because I don't think she has that much time, you might as well give her the legacy fight and the money fight with Amanda the Lioness Nunes. But this honestly ups my confidence in Julianna against Kayla, because even though Kayla is a horrible matchup for Julianna Pena because of her strength in wrestling and size, and because Pena has 23% takedown defense, and Kayla can just hold her down and dominate her on the ground, that weight cut could affect Kayla Harrison's performance. If Kayla is forced to make the 135 limit, Kayla might show up depleted, terrible cardio, and chinny, and weaker, and it just might give Pena a better chance, especially if Pena can weather the early storm, make it into the third, fourth, and fifth. Pena could win this fight based off activity and damage alone, and could just outstrike Kayla to win a decision, honestly. I mean, I will pick Kayla Harrison if they do fight, but now after hearing the way Kayla's been talking, I think Pena's got better odds. And yeah, Kayla should and will be the favorite, but I think the odds should be much closer because of the dilemma with Kayla Harrison's weight cut. 41, less fluid surrounding the brain that absorbs shock. We need Hill versus Roundtree. Yeah, that would be a good fight. And after seeing how good Khalil did against Poatan, I used to think that Hill would beat Khalil. Now I'm not so sure. I mean, I understand styles make fights, and sometimes unsuspecting underdogs will overperform against a champion they're not supposed to do well against. And then after that, they never really amount to anything like Reyes or Steve Urseg. Um, but I mean, you never know, man. Like, Khalil Roundtree could be a bad matchup for Jamal Hill for all we know. He's got the speed advantage. He hits like a truck. Um, Jamal Hill's got good boxing, but I don't know. Roundtree is a nasty striker, and he's very fast at getting in and out, closing the distance. That could be a dangerous fight for Hill. Like, honestly, looking back, I think Roundtree might have beaten Jamal Hill simply because Hill was going to come back way too soon from the Alex Pereira knockout loss. So I don't think he would have been fully recovered. Roundtree, though, if he showed up the way he did against Poatan, I think we would have seen that exact same version of Khalil show up on June 29th against Hill. And Hill might have came back chinny and deterred, and we might have seen Jamal Hill get knocked out again. But I kind of worry for Khalil because, like I said earlier, a lot of challengers who overperform against champions and then get all this hype afterwards, they flop. And that could be Khalil Roundtree. Like, just because he almost beat Alex doesn't mean he's a top fighter or doesn't mean he's going to beat all the top guys in the division. It could just mean stylistically he matches well with Alex or just had a great performance on the night. Um, I don't know, man. And also, Khalil took so much damage in that fight. Like, the damage he took against Poatan could be career-changing damage. And Roundtree may never be the same fighter again. He may never look that good again. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope Khalil takes the according time off. I hope he recovers well. And I hope he comes back looking as good as he did against Pereira. Because with how he looked last Saturday, Khalil's got potential. He has mad potential. He really does. Should the UFC have made Rakic an Ank? Because if Magomed loses, that makes Rakic next in line for the belt, being 1-2 in his last three. Yeah, that was a mistake on the UFC's part. A lot of miscommunication, because people thought that Ank said he will only fight in Abu Dhabi, which is not true. He literally said that he will fight Poatan anywhere, Vegas, MSG, or Abu Dhabi. It doesn't matter. He said he's ready for him anytime in the fall. And the UFC, they tricked Magomed. They baited him into taking a fight in Abu Dhabi, non-title fight, and Magomed made the mistake of taking the fight, not questioning it. The UFC took advantage of Magomed's eagerness to fight in Abu Dhabi. They gave him a non-title fight, and then immediately after, they took that opportunity to give Alex Pereira an on-paper more favorable matchup, which turned out to be not so favorable because of how the fight went, but they gave him a style, they gave him a striker who we know isn't going to shoot takedowns on him to guarantee a third title defense for Alex Pereira. So yeah, the UFC shouldn't have made that fight last weekend. It should have been Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira. But you know what? If Ankalaev goes out there and destroys Rakic, that's gonna make the fight between Pereira and Pereira and Magomed that much more interesting, because by that point, Magomed will be on a 13-fight win streak. He'll have had 2 recent wins over top 5 opponents. He'll be undeniable, and Pereira is already established himself. He's already established himself as an all-time great. 3 defenses of his belt, 3 defenses by knockout, 3-0 in 2024, 3 knockouts. And fans want to see Pereira challenge. They want to see him take on a well-rounded fighter who can test him in the grappling. And that's what I want to see. Not because I want to see Pereira lose, but I want to see if he can truly shut down the wrestling of Magomed. Shut out the wrestling, impose his striking, and potentially knock him out, which he could do, but that has to be proven. I want to see if he can do that. And if he goes out there, beats Magomed, he just may be the second greatest light heavyweight of all time after John Jones. And then that's going to officially kill the narrative that Pereira can't grapple, or that his weakness is wrestling. Because if he goes out there and stuffs all the takedowns of Ankalaev, who wrestle-fucked Jan Blachowicz, who wrestle-fucked Pereira, then again, we can no longer sit here and say that Pereira can't wrestle. Let's see. I don't know how she cuts weight. It's crazy. I was shocked that Kayla Harrison was even able to make 135. I did not think she could do it and be that healthy. But sure enough, she made the weight and she was just fine. And she looked great in the fight against Holly Holm. Amanda the Hitman Nunes. She just wants to complete her contract. She'll go back to the PFL. Yeah, I think she should. Even though having her in the UFC is a nice addition, for her health's sake, if these weight cuts are affecting her to the point where she's literally pissing and puking and pooping blood, she may need to see herself in a promotion where she can fight at 145 or 155 pounds, because health matters. And you got to look out for your health. For as big as being in the UFC is, for as big of an accomplishment of being a UFC champion is, if she cannot get right with her health, cutting weight to 135, she may have to re-sign with the PFL. I'm sorry. Maybe she should look to win the title, defend it once against Nunes, vacate the belt, and go back to PFL. But if she can get it together and get comfortable with these weight cuts, then hey, stick around. But it's just a suggestion. Routine down. Who you got, Ilya or Max? My initial lean for right now is Ilya Topuria. I'm not yet set on that though, but I'll probably go with Ilya just because Max Holloway did so much work to build himself into like a natural lightweight, and now he's got to do all that work to cut back down again. So I don't know how the cut's gonna affect him, and I know that Max Holloway is at this point in their careers might be better than Volk. He's still in his prime, unlike Volk. He's got a better chin than Volk. He poses different challenges to Ilya that Volk didn't, and styles make fights. Again, Ilya beat Volkanovski, who beat Max 3 times, and I've always said the one who beats Volk at featherweight just might also beat Max as well. Um, this might be the Ilya Topuria era. Sorry, I'm gonna say as an early prediction, and this might change, but I'm gonna say Ilya Topuria wins a split decision against Max Holloway. I think Ilya might land the bigger, better shots. He might do a bit more damage. He might rock Max in moments, but Max is probably gonna have higher output. He's probably gonna frustrate Ilya in some moments. He might even hurt Topuria in moments, but Ilya might be able to keep his composure, mix in some takedowns to secure close rounds, and then also land some big shots, and then get a decision. But in a competitive fight, I do think Max is going to truly test Ilya more than Volk was able to, because, like I said, still in his prime, better chin than Volkanovski. He's not fresh off a knockout loss after a 3-month turnaround. So this will be a tougher fight. Like, Max Holloway is that guy. Max is him. But it's going to be hard to count out the new champ in Ilya Topuria. Can Ank fight in the US? Yes, he can, because he did say that he will fight Alex anywhere, Vegas or MSG or Abu Dhabi. It doesn't matter. So he can. Now, Shamaev, on the other hand, they're saying that he can't fight in the States. And I actually believe that, because that might explain why this guy always fights once a year. And his last few fights have been in Abu Dhabi. And the last fight he was booked in was in Saudi Arabia against Robert Whitaker before he pulled out. So I reckon this guy can only fight in the Middle East for now until he can, get his visa sorted. Pereira did 3 title defenses in 1 year. Khabib went on a 3 defense, had 3 defenses in his career. Okay. Jockeys that do that to themselves suffer later in their life. Why? But like I said, Pereira is on a different level right now. And honestly, like, he might retire on top with the belt as light heavyweight champion because he's running out of good competition. His toughest fights are he's got Ankh alive. But if he beats Ankh, who's going to beat him? Like, can I really say if he beats Ankh alive, he loses to Nikita Krylov? Like, no freaking way. I don't think Jan would beat him in a rematch because he's been too inactive. He's not in his prime anymore. And I just don't think he's going to be the same. Like, if they fight again, Jan is going to be washed up. I need to see Jan take another fight. I got to see how good he looks in his next fight, but I think Alex stops him in a rematch. So scratch that. Jan doesn't beat him. And if Ankh doesn't beat him, Pereira may as well vacate the belt and start over at heavyweight, or maybe not vacate, but challenge for that 3rd belt while still being the light heavyweight champion, so that if he wins the heavyweight belt, he can pose with 2 belts. I mean, wouldn't that be insane if Pereira became the first ever 3 division champ in the UFC, winning titles in middleweight, light heavyweight and heavyweight, that would be like legendary stuff. But man, I can't wait for UFC 308. It's only like a few weeks away. I'm really interested to see how Max Topuria is going to shape out. I mean, that the hype is real for that fight. Um, because this is a chance for Ilia Topuria to become a massive star and to establish himself as a legend. If he can take out two of the featherweight goats in 1 year, Topuria, this kid is undeniable. And Max, he is the final boss because right now there's a lot of doubts about Ilia Topuria from a lot of the fans. Like a lot of people are diminishing his win over Volk because Volk is old, chinny, got knocked out by Islam, and that's the only reason why. That's apparently the only reason why he lost to Ilia in people's opinions. And there's a lot of people saying, well, Max is going to beat him. And Max Holloway, I mean, he hasn't lost to anyone else in his prime at featherweight, not named Volkanovski. Only Volk has beat a prime Max at featherweight. So that's why I feel like this fight needed to happen. And that's why I think Ilia beating Max Holloway is more important than beating Volkanovski twice. Because I think if he beats Max, fans are going to respect him even more. And even though he beat Volk to win the title, Volk wasn't the final boss. The final boss is Max Holloway. And I'm interested to see if he can do it, or is Max Holloway, is the blessed era about to take over featherweight again? And honestly, I'm rooting for Max. I'm a Max fan. I hope he can get his belt back. I've waited a long time to see this guy become champ again because I thought he won the second Volk fight. I was disappointed he didn't get the decision. So I hope that 4 years later, come full circle, he can win the title back to make up for it. But we'll see. But if there is a time for Max to win the belt back, it's now, because I don't think he has much time, bro. He's almost 33 years old. And before you know it, Max Holloway is going to be in the 35 circle. He's going to be in the class of fighters who are 35 years old. And in these lighter weight classes for men, they don't win title fights. So Max has now and next year to win the belt. And if he doesn't win the belt back now, he'll never be champ again. But you know what? If Ilia wins, it is what it is. I like Topuria too. I'm not going to be mad. It's not going to be like for me when Val beat Grasso or when Adesanya lost to Dricus. I think this loss will be like an easier pill to swallow. Sancho Chimaev will smash Rob. We'll see. That's another interesting fight on the card because, and I'm glad this fight's 5 rounds because this fight's going to answer a lot of questions about Khamzat because right now there's so many doubts about his cardio. And there's a narrative that if he doesn't finish Robert Whittaker in the early rounds, then Whittaker is going to melt him in the late rounds and maybe finish him. So I don't know. I mean, this is a chance for Khamzat to prove that he has good cardio, that he can go in the late rounds. I mean, if he goes out there and finishes Whittaker early, it is what it is. But how confident can I be for Khamzat going forward in a title fight with Dricus if he finishes Whittaker early? Because if he can't finish Dricus early, he's really going to suffer in the late rounds, and Dricus might finish him late. So I need to see if Khamzat can go in the late rounds so then I can have a better gauge of his chances against Duplessis. Because it's not guaranteed that he's going to finish. It's not guaranteed that he's going to finish Dricus in the first or second round. Same way, it's not guaranteed that he's going to finish Whittaker in the first or second round. Because Whittaker is a different level from a Kevin Holland, from a Reese McKee, from a John Phillips, from a uh, what's that guy's name? GM3. Khamzat Chimaev finishes bums in the first round. He finishes Li Jingliang in the first round. But when he steps it up in competition against elite fighters like Gilbert Burns in his prime, like Kamaru Usman, we see this guy looks more human. He's not able to get the first round finish. He doesn't look like this unbeatable monster, and he gets kind of beat up in these fights. So if Usman and Burns can take the fight to you, if lightweight Burns, so I know he's in the welterweight division, but he's a lightweight fighting at welterweight. He's small, and he's giving Khamzat his licks. And Kamaru Usman on 10 days' notice is giving Khamzat his licks. Imagine a real middleweight, a full-size middleweight on a full camp like Robert Whittaker, standing in front of Khamzat Chimaev in the third in the third round. It's gonna be tough. Usman and Burns are insane on the ground. Rob ain't doing none. I mean, that's true. They're better on the ground, but I mean, Usman is nothing special on the ground when it comes to jiu-jitsu. Usman's just really good with wrestling defense. Burns has better jiu-jitsu defense than Kamaru Usman. Better scrambling on the ground than Usman. But Robert Whittaker has very good takedown defense. Robert Whittaker is good at getting back to his feet apart from the Duplessis fight. For as likely as it is that Khamzat could finish Whittaker early like Dricus did, there's also a good chance that if Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman could weather the early storm and put it on him in the second and third round, you can't count out a veteran and a former champ like Robert Whittaker. I feel you, though. The gas tank is in question. Yeah, and not just that, this guy has had so many illnesses. Like, honestly, I think Khamzat still has lingering effects from COVID that he got like 3 years ago. I think that's why he gets sick so easily. And that's probably why he does get tired in fights. I think Khamzat has forever COVID lungs. And I think that hurts him in his fights. I hope I'm wrong. But if that's true, then I don't think his cardio is ever going to get to the level where it needs to be. Burns kicked Chimaev off him easy. Yeah, he did. But if Chimaev wins this fight, I just hope he can get it together. Because lately he's just been so unreliable, inactive, always pulling out of fights. You just can't rely on this guy. And he's ruined my champ by the end of the year prediction several times. I predicted he'd be champ by the end of 2024. He hasn't fought enough this year. He hasn't fought at all this year to even earn a 2024 title shot. Hardly fought in 2023. And I predicted that he could have been champ in 2023. Didn't happen. And it's crazy. Alex Pereira made his UFC debut 1 year after Khamzat Chimaev. He's already been more active, and he already has 6 title fights and like 4 title wins. And Khamzat has no title fights. He's never fought for a belt. So I don't know. I hope moving forward, I hope after this, I hope Khamzat can have an active 2025. I hope he fights for the title no longer than the first Q of 2025. And then if he wins the belt, then turns around like in the fall in Abu Dhabi again. And then 2026, watch, rinse, repeat. I'm done with this Khamzat fights once every year BS. Like, I just can't deal with this anymore. It's frustrating. Like, I'm tired of hyping up Khamzat Chimaev, and he just keeps letting me down. If Chimaev wins, if he shows up. Yeah, that's true. I mean, the guy has to show up, but I think he will. I think Khamzat will make it to the fight this time. I don't think he's gonna pull out twice in a row. And if he does, then he's done. If he does, I'm done with Khamzat. But man, UFC 308 is a crazy card, one of the best cards of the year. Holloway Topuria, amazing main event. Robert Whittaker, Khamzat Chimaev, amazing co-main event. Lerone Murphy, Dan Ige, that's an okay fight. Shouldn't be the feature fight of the pay-per-view. But Magomed Ankalaev, Rakic, that's a good fight right there. Shura Magomedov, Armin Petrosyan. I don't know why Jeff Neal and RDA is not on the main card. That makes no sense to me. I think Dan Ige and Lerone should be headlining the prelims, and I think Jeff Neal versus RDA, I think that should be on the main card. And then we got some other good fights too on this card, but this card is so stacked. And these Abu Dhabi fights, like Dana White, I swear to God, he's always cooking when it comes to these Abu Dhabi cards. They always deliver. Like UFC 267 was in Abu Dhabi, amazing card. And then UFC 254, that was another good Abu Dhabi October pay-per-view. And then UFC 280, great pay-per-view. UFC 294, that was another good pay-per-view, and now UFC 308. Like, I love these cards, and they're always, like, during the day, too, so you don't have to wait all day for them to happen. Depending on the time zone you're at, of course. That's in Abu Dhabi, of course. And yeah, there's no women's MMA fights on this card. That's what people talk about when they talk about UFC 308. They point out how there's no women's MMA on this card. Of course they don't want chick fights, bro. If you know the culture over there. I mean, when was the last time there was a women's MMA fight in Abu Dhabi? And I don't mean Fight Island. There's been plenty of Fight Island COVID WMA fights when the UFC had to go to Abu Dhabi because of the pandemic or the Apex. But under these circumstances, post-COVID, the only time I've seen a women's MMA fight take place in Abu Dhabi was Manon Fiorot versus Caitlin Chukagian. That was probably like the only women's MMA fight that happened at UFC 280, I believe. UFC 267 didn't have a women's MMA fight, I don't believe. Yeah, they have. They fought in Abu Dhabi, but Manon Fiorot, yeah, I just mentioned that. Manon Fiorot, Caitlin Chukagian, they fought in Abu Dhabi. But we had more women's fights in Abu Dhabi when there was a pandemic, and the UFC, like I said, they had no choice but to go there if the Apex wasn't available. Because Abu Dhabi, Fight Island, that's where they were hosting fights. So that's where we saw fights like Nama Nunes versus Andrade 2, Van Zant versus Rebus. We've seen Tyler Santos fight there before in Fight Island. Marina Rodriguez, Carla Esparza in Fight Island. So plenty of women's fights have happened in Abu Dhabi. But post-COVID, under regular circumstances with a full arena, we've only had one women's MMA fight in Abu Dhabi, I believe. I'm hyped for Hernandez Pereira. Both have been on a tear recently. Fluffy's ground game is fire. Yeah, that's a pretty good fight. I have no idea why they moved that off Noche UFC. Because other than Grasso, Shevchenko 3, and O'Malley Merab, and Lopez Ortega, even though the co-main and main sucked and were boring, Hernandez and Pereira was like the only other fight other than those three that actually mattered. That was exciting, and they had to remove it. Him beating Kopylov, yeah, it was an insane submission. Who do I have winning, Hernandez or Michel Pereira? I'll probably go with Michel Pereira to win that fight. I don't know, because he's strong. I think he's got pretty good takedown defense. He's good at getting takedowns of his own. He's got better striking than Anthony Hernandez. But then again, it's a 5-round fight. And Anthony Hernandez is a dog. He's got insane cardio. I got to think about this one. But if Michel Pereira can't get Fluffy out of there early, Fluffy might break him in the late rounds and win a decision or maybe a late sub. But if it was a 3-round fight, I'm definitely picking Michel Pereira. Like, Michel Pereira is one of those guys who's very difficult to beat if it's in a 3-round setting because he's such a fast starter. He's so good in those early rounds. It's usually like the 3rd round where he kind of breaks and isn't as good. And then we also have Brandon Royval versus Tatsura Taira this weekend. I don't really cover fight nights on this channel anymore. I used to always talk about fight nights, especially on my old channel before it got terminated because of copyright, unfortunately. I used to always do breakdown and predictions for almost every fight night main event. Maybe I should start doing that again. I don't know. But I'm just more passionate when it comes to either women's MMA or men's fights on pay-per-views. Like, when was the last time I actually did a prediction for a fight night main event or a fight night card in general? It's been a minute because I didn't talk about Burns Brady. I didn't talk about Moicano Saint Denis. Oh yeah, I did a prediction for UFC on ABC, Sanhagen versus Nurmagomedov, because that was a stacked card. It had Tony Ferguson, Chiesa, Chito Vera versus Davis and Figueiredo. Um, a lot of good fights on there, and I just felt very confident with predicting that whole card. And even if I didn't predict the whole card, I felt like Nurmagomedov versus Sanhagen was a big enough fight for me to talk about. But you know what? Maybe I will talk more about fight nights. Maybe I will talk about Hernandez, Fluffy in an individual video. I don't think I can do one though for Tyra versus Royval just because it's a little bit too late. I haven't done enough research or tape study on either party. So I don't know. I don't want to have to like scramble last minute to do any research to make a clear prediction. But I'll just watch that one as a fan, and then maybe I'll talk about Hernandez Fluffy. But looking through my channel, I actually did talk about like the women's MMA fight night main events. But again, that's because I'm like a diehard women's MMA fan. All right. Oh yeah, and I also predicted the Whitaker and Aliskerov fight. If Royval had power, he would be champ. Dude is so skilled but no power. That's so true, actually. Not only that, if Brandon Royval had good takedown defense and not just good jiu-jitsu off his back, he would be champ. Because that's the thing about B. Royval. I mean, his takedown defense looked good against Brandon, but Brandon's not really that good of a wrestler like Pantoja. So it's easy for your takedown defense to look good against Moreno unless you're a depleted Davis and Figueiredo. But Royval's the kind of guy where it's like he's a good striker. His takedown defense isn't that good, but he's so dependent off his ground fighting. Like, he can give up a takedown but threaten submissions, be active from bottom. He can scramble well, but that's always going to hurt him when he goes up against like the wrestlers of the division. Like, if you put him up against an Amir Albazi, he's going to struggle. If Makayev was still in the UFC, he'd beat Royval. And Pantoja already beat him twice. If they fight again, I don't think Royval wins that. But yeah, if Royval had perfect takedown defense, he beats Pantoja because he's a way better striker. And on the feet, Brandon Royval is a piece of work for anyone at flyweight to deal with. He's got the attributes, he's got the height, he's tall, he's awkward, he's creative. He's a handful for anyone on the feet. It's just that the path to victory to beating him is you got to have good wrestling and take him down. And Royval could still hurt people. I wouldn't say he has like no power at all. He has some power. I mean, he's got a lot of knockouts on his resume, I'm sure. I mean, Royval has 4 wins by knockout, 9 wins by subs, but a lot of those submissions, he clubbed and subbed those guys. I mean, he dropped and subbed Kai Kara France. Let's see. He knocked out Matheus Nicolau. Um, I think he dropped Matt Chanel and subbed him. Okay, I need to charge my laptop. Hold on, let me just get my charger. My laptop's dying. Okay, let me just. Okay, there we go. Julianna better retire because Kayla round one sub. Nah, I think Kayla Harrison will win that fight by decision. I think Julianna Pena will surprise people with her ability to survive, but I think that's all she's going to be able to do is survive because even though she could win on the feet, she's not going to be able to defend takedowns. She's not as strong as Ketlin Vieira, and her takedown defense just isn't as good. And she's not that good at getting back to her feet. Amanda Nunes exposed the holes in her defensive wrestling game, and we saw the success that McMahon had before she gassed. And I mean, I do think Kayla is going to slow down a little bit, but she's not going to gas to the point where Juliana is going to be able to start turning the wrestling around on Kayla, and where she's going to be able to get her own takedowns on Kayla. That's not going to happen. I think the only way Juliana could win this fight is if Kayla just holds her down, does nothing, and Juliana is more active from bottom. Then she could win like a similar decision that she could maybe win like a Magny Johnny Hendricks type decision where Magny beat Hendricks by being active from bottom and Hendricks just laid on him. Like that's the only way Juliana could win. And then maybe have some big moments on the feet. But yeah, she's probably not submitting Kayla Harrison. She's not knocking out Kayla. Um, but I doubt Kayla finishes her because Pena's got the toughness. And even though she got submitted by strikers, I feel like she's kind of improved her submission defense. She was able to defend subs from Amanda, Sarah McMahon. I mean, she was hurt against Raquel Pennington, and the easiest way to submit somebody is when you hurt them. And a rocked Juliana Pena escaped the guillotine choke or the front choke of or no, I think it was a Darce choke that Raquel went for. I'm not sure. She was able to escape a submission while dazed against Raquel Pennington. If there was any time for Raquel to sub her, it was then. So I think, yeah, I don't know. I think Pena's improved her sub defense, and I also just feel like in the fights where she did get subbed, she was caught by surprise because she was fighting strikers where she wasn't prepared for them to attack submissions. So then by the time they went for a sub, she just didn't know how to react. Her brain didn't know how to process the moment or to process the situation, and then it was too late. She either got choked unconscious or got tapped out. I mean, I don't doubt Kayla could sub her, but I just think Juliana is going to be able to hang in there and not get finished. Maybe Harrison wins like 50-45, probably. Maybe Pena might like get one round at least. She called out Nunes. That was so funny. But I don't know why people act like they're so surprised that Juliana called her out. I was not surprised she called out Amanda Nunes. And it's not because she's ducking Kayla Harrison. She literally addressed her in the press conference saying that if Nunes doesn't want it, Kayla is also a big fight and she would like that. In her words, she said, I would like that. But the Nunes trilogy was a fight that's been lingering on her mind forever. That was a fight that was supposed to happen. And then Pena got injured. Nunes retired. And Pena, as a competitor, she just wants it back. So I don't really fault her for calling out Amanda Nunes. It's a big fight. It's a money fight. And it's a fight that could happen. And I did say that if Juliana Pena does beat Raquel, the trilogy fight with Nunes could happen. And I knew she was going to call out Nunes if she were to win. Alex should go up to heavyweight, man. 3 division champ and make him the GOAT. That's unbelievable. Let him try. I think Bones and Aspinall both smashing him, but I want to see it regardless. Yeah, me too. I mean, like Adesanya says, dare to be great. And God loves a trier, and you never know if you don't try. I know Poatan said that he's comfortable at 205 and he's not switching weight classes anytime soon, but I'll say one more defense. If he beats either Rakic or Ankalaev, that's 4 defenses. By that point, he's cleaned out the division. He has to test himself against either Bones or Aspinall. And imagine if he actually pulls it off against Tom or Jones. That would literally break the internet. And I mean, he's already a legend, but he'd be more of a legend than he already is if he's to pull that off. Because that's unprecedented. No one has ever been able to win belts in 3 divisions in the UFC. Nunes gave her a beating of a lifetime. That first fight was a fluke. Nunes looked like she was sick. Yeah, I mean, Nunes did beat her up pretty good. And that, I mean, yeah, I did say in that video that for Pena's sake, as a Pena fan, I don't want to see it, at least not right this instant, you know? Because every time she fights Amanda, she takes so much damage. Like, a fight with Amanda has brain damage written all over for Pena because Pena doesn't have good striking defense. She's very hittable. She's very tough, but Nunes has so much firepower. And I mean, she did so much damage to Pena in that first fight, closed up her eye. In that second fight, she dropped her multiple times, cut her open with elbows, almost rearranged her pretty face. And in a third fight, I just don't know if Pena can endure that level of punishment again against Amanda. Amanda is going to hit her again, and she's going to hit her hard. And if Raquel could drop her, Amanda Nunes just might knock Julianna Pena out in a third fight. I don't think the first win was a fluke because that's how Nunes has been beaten. If you look at Nunes' career, she's lost fights by starting strong, fading, and then being broken down by the fighter who's able to tough things out and take it to her, like Alexis Davis, Kat Zingano. But I understand it hadn't happened to her in years. She looked to improve her cardio and her pacing. But if that's the way you're going to beat Amanda Nunes, that's how Pena did it. That's how you have to do it. So because of that, I don't think it's a fluke. Pena did exactly what she said she was going to do. I just think Amanda Nunes underestimated her. She got overconfident. Julianna Pena just came really prepared. And Julianna Pena had the element of surprise. But in the rematch, Nunes locked in, took her seriously, prepared better. The shock factor was gone, and she didn't underestimate her. So, yeah, I think beating Amanda again is just, it's going to be hard for Julianna. Like, Amanda Nunes is just so much better. So if they're going to fight again, I don't want to see it right now because I know Julianna is going to lose that fight. And I already had to suffer as a fan through seeing Julianna lose her first defense to Amanda Nunes. I've wanted to see her get her belt back for years. Imagine me having to see her get her belt back and her first defense being a loss to Nunes. That's like a nightmare repeating itself. So please know, let Pena fight Kayla, and if Pena can beat Kayla, make that fight. Or if Pena fights Dumont because Kayla needs time off, and if she beats Norma or whoever she fights next, if she at least defends her title, which I know isn't super likely, if she can defend her belt, then make the Nunes fight. I just want to see Pena get a defense of the title. And it would be very shitty to see her go out like that on 2 title losses to Amanda Nunes. In their second fight, Nunes put a beating on Pena, but Nunes got all jacked up in the process. She couldn't even walk. Her face was swollen. I mean, that's what 25 minutes with Pena will do to you. Like, Pena's a tough fighter. Pena is a very, very tough fighter. And when you sign the contract to fight Pena, you know you're going to be in for a fight. Like, she's one of those fighters where it's like, yeah, if I signed to fight her, I am in for a war. And that's true. Pena did do damage to Nunes's face. I mean, she did. I mean, part of it was because of the headbutt, but even before that, Nunes already had a black eye from those jabs of Pena. Like, Pena was touching her. She was touching her good. And I do think in a third fight, I did mention this earlier, I do think the striking would be competitive. I think Pena would be more prepared this time, and I think she would land on Nunes. But I think eventually it's going to end with Amanda Nunes winning somehow. Like, Pena will fight hard early, but eventually I think Amanda's going to catch her. Pena is going to do well, but she's going to get too confident with her success. She's going to run into a big shot. Amanda Nunes is not going to gas out like she did in the first fight. The reason why Nunes gassed is because she tried too hard to finish Pena. She got frustrated, couldn't finish her, and got an adrenaline dump. But in the second fight, she was more patient and she was more accurate with her punches. Yeah, part of it was she was in the southpaw stance, so she was landing with the right check hook, and Pena couldn't see the right hand coming from the southpaw stance. And it's the shots you don't see coming that get you, right? But Nunes was also just more accurate, more patient, and more accurate. She picked her shots better. She didn't just swing like an ape like the first fight. Like, when you're not accurate, it doesn't matter how powerful you are. If your shots are inaccurate, it's going to be easier to take them. And Nunes, in a third fight, is going to fight like a sniper. She's going to pick her shots against Pena. She might take some shots, but she's going to keep her composure this time, not get too wild. And when the opportunity presents itself, I think eventually Nunes is going to be able to find a counter on Pena. And I just don't think Pena is as indestructible as she was in that first fight. I don't know. I just feel like Nunes kind of diminished her chin a little bit. I don't know, chat. What do you think? Do you think her getting dropped by Raquel was because of the damage she took from Nunes, or was it just a well placed shot? I don't know, man. I care about Penny. I'm a huge fan, so for her sake, I don't want to see it. But if it has to happen, so be it. I'll just hope for the best. I'm still gonna support Pena. And who knows? Maybe she'll win. We'll see. Who's next for Valentina? It should be Manon Furo. I think that's what's next for Valentina. Is Manon. Um, let's see. I don't think it's the chin. I just think she's a horrible striker. She's tough and crazy pressure, like you said. Yeah, that's fair. And I just think in that moment where she got dropped, I mean, I think she just got very careless. She tried swinging with her back against the cage, eyes closed, and Raquel just she wasn't closing her eyes when throwing the punch. She aimed and she fired and she was accurate. So I guess it does make sense that she was able to knock down Julianna. And also, Julianna was slowing down a little bit as well. She was tired. And when you're tired, it's a lot harder to take a big shot when you're fatigued. Like, when you're tired, shots feel more powerful and it's easier to get knocked out. And it's also easier to lose focus and get complacent. Pennington got power too. I mean, does she really though? Like, she has only had one finish in her entire career and has never had a knockdown in the UFC other than the fight with Pena. But I mean, also, it's possible Pennington could have worked on her power too, or maybe the power was always there, but maybe Raquel worked on her accuracy, and then from that we saw the full extent of her power. Like it looked like in this fight, she was really sitting down in her punches more than we've ever seen her. And that's probably why even in that first round when she landed, it actually looked really hard. Because usually when Raquel lands, I never feel worried for her opponent. I never feel like, oh, that was a big shot. She got her there. But when she touched Julianna a couple of times in that first round, I was like, oh no, Julianna can't get hit again, bro. Her defense has to be on point. But I'm gonna say fights to make after UFC 307. I'm gonna keep my focus on like the main event and like I'm gonna say like the main event and the co-main event. Let me just look at UFC 307 real quick because I don't remember the lineup off the top of my head. But let's see, UFC 307. Okay, so I think for Alex Pereira, obviously, Ank if he beats Rakic, and if Rakic wins, I mean they'll probably make that fight anyway. So I guess him versus the winner of Rakic Ank. Khalil Roundtree. Hmm. I'd say Roundtree takes time off, and when he comes back, I'd say maybe fights. If Dominic Reyes beats Anthony Smith, make Dominic Reyes versus Khalil Roundtree. If Smith wins, maybe just reschedule the Jamal Hill fight. Or maybe do Roundtree versus the winner of Krylov versus I forgot who Krylov is fighting. Screw it, I'm gonna say Roundtree Hill. Make that fight. If Jamal Hill is not gonna come back till early next year, his comeback might align with the return of Khalil. Then for the women's fight, that's pretty easy. Next fight for Juliana Pena should obviously be Kayla Harrison. And then for Raquel, she should fight Norma Dumont so the UFC can build up the rising contender Norma. And if Norma wins, she's the number one contender. She's getting the next shot. And then, make Jose Aldo Dominic Cruz. And then, well, that Bautista. I don't know. Who cares about Mario Bautista? He sucks. Maybe give him Rob Font, but I feel like they should punish him and give him like Song Yadong so we can see him get slept. Or maybe give him a Corey Sanhagen rematch so Corey can build back his confidence and claim his son. Oh, yeah, Roundtree Jiri would be an insane fight. Roundtree versus Hill or Yuri would be crazy considering the fact that he did so much better against Alex Pereira. He's got a speed advantage over both. He hits like a truck. And it's possible that he could knock out Prohaska or Jamal. A long way to go, but man, I'm excited for Islam Arman. Me too. That's a good rematch. That's a high level fight. And I think that's gonna be one of Islam's toughest fights since the Volkanovski fight, because he's going up against a guy who can compete with him everywhere. He's going up against a guy who can strike with him. Both are good on the feet. I think Islam has slightly better striking and a little bit more power than Arman, but Arman's competitive standing. Arman can match the strength and physicality. Arman can match the wrestling. Therefore, Arman might have good enough takedown defense to defend Islam's takedowns. And he might be able to challenge him on the feet. Like, I could see a world where Sarukian wins a decision against Islam. Like he might just win a close decision against Makhachev. I could just see it. Like this fight, I think the rematch is going to go exactly like the first fight, but we're going to see a more experienced version of Islam and Arman, and it's just going to be 5 rounds longer. Um, if Pena versus Kayla has good odds, I'm throwing the house on Kayla, but I bet at least she's like minus 350 LOL. I mean, yeah, she shouldn't be that big of a favorite just because of her last performance and because of what she's saying about her weight cut. Yeah, Roundtree Hill, great fight. If Armin can't beat Islam, no one in that division can. Go to 170. I totally agree, but I mean, Makhachev is saying as long as Bilal's champion, because he's like his fellow Muslim brother, then he will not move up and he will not fight him. But I don't think Bilal's going to be champ for long anyway. I think he's going to lose the belt like to Shavkat Rakhmonov. But then again, if he beats Shavkat, then yeah, we might see we might see Islam avoid 170 then. But imagine Islam versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. That would be a crazy fight. But I mean, honestly, I think Islam could beat Bilal. I mean, if Leon Edwards could finish every round on top and dominate round 3 by having the body lock on Bilal, I think Islam could easily outgrapple Bilal Muhammad. And I think he could strike with him too. I totally agree. He is, bro. Shavkat Rakhmonov is a future champion. And it sucks because I predicted he would be champ by the end of the year, but is he even going to fight for the belt by the end of the year? Like, what's going on with UFC 310? Because there's no title fights booked. Whaley ducked Suarez like a scared little bitch. Maybe Marab might fight on that card. Maybe Valentina might. I don't know. I doubt it. Too quick of a turnaround for Val, but Marab said he'd be willing to fight in December, so I could see him maybe fighting Umar on that card. But if not, are they really going to have Pantoja close out the year? Are they really going to have Pantoja headline the final pay-per-view of the year? I don't think anyone wants to see that. I think it needs to be Bilal and Shavkat. Otherwise, the only other option is get Drickus in there against Sean Strickland. I could say get Poatan in there and do the Blachowicz rematch since Ankalaev, of course, is not going to turn around after 2 months if he wins. Rakic might, but Pereira has been so active, and I think for his sake, he just needs to take the year off and chill. And he already said he's going to take a long-deserved break, which he should. He's earned it. He's been so active, he doesn't need to fight anymore, so scratch that. I don't think Poatan should fight on that card. I mean, what is the UFC going to do with UFC 310? They already fumbled McGregor Chandler headlining that card, so yeah, UFC 310 might be in trouble unless they can get Bilal Shavkat on there. Bilal just called out Strickland. You don't want that Shavkat smoke. Yeah, that fight's not going to happen, bro. That's like an unrealistic match. I mean, Bilal can move up and fight Sean, but Sean's focused on that rematch with Duplessis, which I'm hearing. I mean, Pereira said that's going to be the next fight, so he might know something we don't. And I'm hearing the UFC wants to book Sean Strickland versus DDP in Sydney in February, depending on the outcome of Whitaker Shemaev or how that one plays out. Kazakhstan power, yes. Yeah, that's weird that he's calling out Sean. It's totally weird. All right, guys. It's very late. It's 12 a.m. and I got school tomorrow, and some people in my house are sleeping, so I'm gonna call this live. But thank you guys for joining tonight. Thanks for the support, and I'll try to go live again as soon as possible. And I'm gonna be pumping out more content, so don't worry, your boy's gonna be back. Yeah, Usman Bilal. That could happen too, I guess. I mean, I don't know what's going on with Kamaru Usman. Is he even gonna fight this year? Probably not. I mean, he's on his way out and is probably gonna retire soon. I mean, he will retire soon. And I mean, Usman Bilal, that's a fight I'll talk about in another live for sure. But yeah, right now I'm gonna call this thing. But yeah, peace.